Okay, so welcome back. You may have seen a lot of hype and activity surrounding the new Windows 11 that's supposed to be released by Microsoft sometime towards the end of 2021. And you may have seen some reviews on some of the features and a lot of excitement over some of the things it has and a lot of speculation. And also a lot of concern over the fact that it might require hardware upgrades. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to talk about some of what I've seen so far for the features of Windows 11. And then I'm going to talk about, in my view, some of the features that are desperately needed in Windows and improvements that have been hanging on for decades that really need to be fixed. Now, if you're like me, I've been around Windows since before it was Windows. Back in the DOS days, back in the 70s and 80s, and I've followed new versions of Windows ever since then. And there are some features of Windows that are, in my view, an absolute joke, that have needed to be improved and repaired in the last decades, and nothing's been done. Instead, they get stuff like this. And this is an image I took that was posted by Microsoft a while back that shows the new visual features of Windows 11. And as you can see, it's got some amazing improvements, such as down at the bottom, the taskbar, they moved the icons to the middle of the taskbar. Unbelievable, right? Your jaw may drop to know one of the big features is they moved the icons to the middle of the taskbar. And then something even more amazing is if you look here, the windows now have curved corners. Unbelievable. Now, you may be detecting some sarcasm, and you're absolutely right. People are getting so excited over these minor visual improvements, in quotes, for Windows 11 and this nice looking 3D-ish background. But, come on, you got to be serious. Yeah, they're talking about apparently some significant improvements in security in the background, and that's fine. But really, in terms of features that I can see every day, I don't see anything. So, of course, it hasn't been released. There may be some other things, but what I want to do is talk about some of the many things that really they need to be focusing on, in my view, that have been a complete mess for decades. So the first thing I want to talk about is progress bars in Windows. Now, if you've been around Windows for any amount of time, you may be laughing now because you know exactly what I'm talking about. Progress bars have been an absolute joke in Windows forever. Now, what are progress bars? Well, if you're doing downloads or installing something or searching for something, it will give you a progress bar showing what percent complete you are in doing that task. So here I've got an image I grabbed from a Windows 10 update, getting your update ready, and you can see it's 81% complete. Now, what is the purpose of a progress bar? Well, people like progress bars because it says, okay, how much longer do I have to wait for this thing to get done so I can go on and do something else, right? That's not what progress bars do in Windows. All they do is they give you an indication of how much of the stuff has been done, but no indication whatsoever on how long it's going to take to get finished, which is what people want. So, as you know, if you've used Windows for any amount of time, this is just a joke. I mean, what will happen in Windows, like, for example, if you're doing an update, it might take you 5 minutes to get from 0 to 81% complete, but then it could take 2 hours to get from 81 to 100, right? So it has no information whatsoever on how long it's going to take. It just says, well, I've done 81% of the stuff, but it doesn't tell you how much longer you have to wait. It is the most frustrating thing, and it applies whether you're doing downloads, you're downloading stuff, you're installing stuff, you're searching. It's an absolute joke. Now, come on, Windows, really, you need to work on these simple things like getting progress bars to be of some use. Now, we talk about searching. The next thing I want to talk about is the joke of searching in File Explorer. So here's an example where I tried to in File Explorer, I'm selected this PC, and I wanted to search for something that I knew didn't exist, but I wanted to see how long it would take for Windows to search for it. So I entered in the search bar Zuba. Now Zuba is totally meaningless. I know it doesn't exist on my computer. I don't even know what it is, but I wanted to see how long it would take Windows to tell me that there's no Zuba on my computer. So I will spare you the pain of what I went through waiting for this. In the end, it took 11.5 minutes for Windows to tell me that Zuba doesn't exist on my PC. Okay? Now, I'm sure you can relate to that if you've used Windows for any amount of time. It's a joke. Now, you may say, well, yeah, you can index your hard drives and it'll be faster. Yes, my hard drives are indexed, and this is still 11.5 minutes. So it's a joke. Now, I talked before about progress bars, and you can see when you do a search in File Explorer, you get this pseudo progress bar up here. And when I was doing this, it took, to get about halfway in the progress bar, it took maybe 30 seconds. It went fairly fast. Then after about halfway, it started slowing down and then getting slower and slower and slower. And it even went to the point after a few minutes, it went over what looks like the end of the progress bar and it spilled over into, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And, you know, at the end of the day, this thing kept just going, creeping along so slowly, and it took me 11.5 minutes, okay? It's just a joke. You know, come on, you gotta fix stuff like this instead of putting rounded corners on the windows, okay? The next thing I want to talk about is thumbnails. Now, here is an example of File Explorer where I've got some graphics related files in File Explorer, and I've set it to show me thumbnails if it can, and it can't, okay? I've got a Photoshop file, which is basically just an image. It's a .psd file, and you can see there's no thumbnail. I don't know what the image is. It should normally give you like a little picture like it does with JPEGs and PNGs and any image files. It should give you a little picture here, a thumbnail. It doesn't. It can't. Now I've got another file, a OBJ. This is basically a three-dimensional object. It's a .obj file, and it is generated in something like Blender. If you're familiar with 3D graphics, Maya, Blender, the different 3D model making softwares can come out with a version of their 3D object that is a .obj. And since it's a three-dimensional graphical object, it should give you a little thumbnail showing me the object. It doesn't. It can't. Another one, HDR, which is a high dynamic range image. Again, it's just an image with special characteristics, but it doesn't give you an image of the HDR. So, unbelievable. And there's a whole list of things that you can't get thumbnails of in File Explorer. So what do? Well, you gotta, as usual with Windows, you gotta download separate software. Luckily, a lot of it is free, but you gotta download separate software to make up for the things that Windows can't do. So I download something called, at least in this case, P3DO Explorer, and it's kind of a replacement for File Explorer, and it gives you thumbnails, okay? So here is my HDR, my quarry.hdr. In P3DO Explorer, it gives you an actual thumbnail image of the HDR. And then it's got the the Photoshop file, it gives you an image, right? A preview. And even with the 3D object, it gives you a thumbnail. And not only does it give you a thumbnail, but it gives you a little window here where you can navigate and look at the object. This is a 3D object, and you can actually look at it. You can't do that in File Explorer. It gives you nothing. And you got to go to the trouble of downloading separate software. And that's the case with so many things in Windows. You're always downloading separate software to make up for the fact that Windows doesn't do basic stuff for you, okay? So thumbnails, it's pretty much a joke. PSD, HDR, OBJ, PowerPoints. Yeah, you can get thumbnails of PowerPoint stuff and other Microsoft Office. In my experience, it's hit or miss. Text files, even give us a little preview of a text file. All right. So thumbnails are a joke. Now, the one that I'm sure most people will just laugh at is the Troubleshooter. Now, Windows Troubleshooter has never, for me, ever worked. And I've been using it for decades. So for examples, you can't find a computer on your network or something else. There is a Windows Troubleshooter. Oh yeah, we got a troubleshooter for that. Click on the troubleshooter. In my experience, 99.99% of the time, you will get this answer. Troubleshooting couldn't identify the problem. Okay? It never, ever works. It has never worked. It never will work as far as I can tell. It's a joke. So, either get rid of the troubleshooter so we don't waste our time trying it, or make it so it can identify stuff. Now, if you've got a problem that is super simple to resolve, and you shouldn't need the troubleshooter, then yeah, you might get an answer. Otherwise, it's just a joke. I never use it anymore because I get this. I get this, couldn't identify the problem. Now, another thing I want to talk about is networking. If you have multiple computers on your home network, you may be familiar with the issue I'm going to be talking about. Now, one of my most popular videos is explaining how to share files when you've got multiple computers connected to your router and to your internet service provider. If you got multiple computers and you maybe want to share files from one computer to another computer, then it can be very confusing. And I put out a video explaining how to do that in simple terms, and it was extremely popular, a lot of positive responses. The problem is I shouldn't need to make a video on how to do sharing across a network, all right? It should be straightforward. Networking in Windows has been around for decades, and it has always been a big challenge and an annoyance. Now, I'm an electrical engineer for 45 years. I know about this stuff, and still, to me, it is a huge pain. So, for example, if you've got multiple computers on a network, you might start up File Explorer and you can't see some of the other computers even though you've got them set up correctly. And I just posted a video on how to get around that and maybe help that, but it's just a joke. The networking in Windows is just a horrendous mess. And you'll get a version of Windows that comes out and suddenly the networking isn't working. That happened a year or so ago. And really, come on, you really got to work on these basic core functionalities of a Windows operating system. Now, another thing I want to talk about is remote desktop software. So, for example, if you've got multiple computers on a network and you're on one computer and you want to access the other computer as if you were sitting down in front of that computer, and maybe that computer doesn't even have a keyboard and monitor, it's just sitting there, and you want to be able to control it from another computer on your network. Well, that functionality isn't built into Windows unless I think you get an upgraded a Pro version or something. But for those who don't have the Pro version, you again have to download some software to allow you to do that. In my case, I downloaded software called AnyDesk, and there's multiple different types of software out there. Presently I use this, but basically I am on my main computer and I have a window open that allows me to access another computer on the network. So you can go through and you can, click on an icon on the other computer and it will run some software so you can access that. You can go to the files and everything else. But I think it's something that is a core functionality of an operating system to have access to other computers. So, wouldn't it be nice if Windows 11 had a really, really nice remote desktop software capability that came with the basic version? Now, there's a bunch of other things that I think Windows should include that they don't, or improve. Malware. A lot of us have to download separate malware software. so that we don't have to worry about malware on our PCs. Shouldn't that be included with Windows? And another really nice feature I think they should have in Windows is what you see here. For those of us who have a lot of stuff on the desktop, a lot of icons, links, and shortcuts to software, it would be nice if there was some way to arrange it. And I had to download a separate piece of software where you could put your all your different icons into little groups like this that automatically jump out, and then you can select them and they automatically go away. Very nice way to arrange your desktop. We don't have that in Windows. It would be great. I mean, it's a basic desktop management. So that's one thing I think would be a really great feature to have in Windows. Also, things like backing up and synchronizing. Now, a lot of people, I think, to back up their software, download some relatively expensive software that does really fancy backup of your files and folders. But really, my first video I ever did years ago was talking about how most people, all you need is some type of simple software to copy files to another hard drive or to another computer on the network. It's called synchronizing. And really all we need is a simple synchronizing software, but people like me have to download software that will do simple, every day at 3 in the morning, it will copy selected files and folders to a different hard drive or to a different PC on the network. Shouldn't that be included in Windows? And really the last thing I want to talk about, and to me it's the biggest thing, is quality control. Now, if you've updated Windows recently in the last years, you know that quality control is really an issue. They put out software updates that are just a joke. It's really horrendous. I mean, they cause so many problems, and the problem is that in the software world is the only area in the universe where software developers seem to think that their users are responsible for finding bugs. I mean, you don't get that with your car. You don't buy a car with the belief that, oh, well, if it crashes, not a problem. That's my job to check to see if there's any problems with the car. No, that doesn't happen. But with software, for some reason, users are expected to spend their time debugging and finding problems with software, and it's like assumed to be okay. It's not. I mean, the quality control at Microsoft really needs some serious work. We get versions of Windows that have such big problems. They really need to work on that. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on Windows 11 and any Windows upgrade. Some of the things they really need to be working on. Anyway, I hope that helps. Take care and have a really good day. Thanks.